I went to the farmer's market today and they had some beautiful carrots and I just couldn't resist. And the reason why I'm telling you this is it's important that you know that even if you don't have your own garden, it's possible for you to go to the farmer's market and to buy yourself some nice fresh carrots to preserve. You don't have to grow everything yourself. If you don't have the space, it's possible to get some fresh produce just about anywhere. You just want to make sure that you're going to buy a nice, good quality carrot, and you want to have a carrot that you can preserve and ready to eat at a moment's notice. You don't have to start peeling and cooking your carrots. They'll be all ready. So any good quality carrot is fine. I just happened to go to the farmer's market this morning, saw these beautiful carrots and couldn't resist. So I'm going to show you today how I pressure can these carrots. Vegetables that I love to have canned, and one of them is carrots and the other one are green beans. And I also have another video on how I do pressure can and preserve my green beans, so be sure to check that out. Carrots are another one that I'm going to show you today. It's really simple to do. It just consists of prepping your carrots, putting them in the jar, and pressure canning. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, first of all, take the tops off your carrots if you do have carrots with tops on. And then you're going to peel, and you're going to wash, and you're going to slice your carrots. So just a note on slicing your carrots. There's two ways you can do them, and I used to do them in my food processor. I have a slicing blade, but I just found that the slice was a little bit too thin, and they cooked down quite a bit because they are going to be pressure canned, so they are going to cook in the jar, and I just found that they were a little overcooked. So now I just slice them by hand. It doesn't take much longer, and I slice them a little chunkier, maybe like half-inch slices. I'm not very good. I'm not a carpenter, so I just slice them a little bit chunkier so they hold up well inside the jar when I pressure can. So now I'm going to get through the rest of these carrots. I have all my carrots prepped. It really didn't take too long. I don't have a big batch, and that's okay. You don't always have to do big, huge batches. Sometimes it's really nice to have a small batch. Last year my daughter had a lot of carrots and she asked for some help. It's a good thing I had my parents to help me out. It took us the better part of, well, it took them, my parents, a better part of a day to peel and slice, and then I canned. I had two full canners, 18 jars each pot. So it was quite the process. So doing a small batch is sometimes nice, and I'm waiting for my own carrots to come in as well in the garden, or my father's carrots to come in the garden. So there you go. So I'm going to start with a small batch. You got to start somewhere. So it's time to put these in the jars. So let's get started. So I am doing what's called a raw pack canning. I didn't pre-cook my carrots. You can pre-cook them a little bit, boiling them for around 5 minutes before putting them in the jars. I prefer just putting them in raw. You pack them down really nice and tight, and I prefer to do it that way. I find cooking them in advance is an extra step that I don't need. It's all about whatever you prefer. So you want to start by filling your jars with your carrots, packing them really tightly down, leaving 1-inch headspace. You want to make sure to get your carrots really in that jar nice and tight. You can really press down. They are going to shrink during the cooking process, so don't worry about packing them too tight. Then optional is salt. You want to add half a teaspoon of salt for a pint-sized jar, for a 500 milliliter jar. You got to remember you're pressure canning, so you want to be using your pickling salt. So once you've got your jar filled with your carrots and you've added your salt, the next thing you do is you backfill your jar with hot water. Remember, we're going to be pressure canning this hot, so you want to make sure that your jars are nice and hot, and the water that you're putting in is also nice and hot. You want to make sure to remove your air bubbles using a plastic instrument as to not to damage the glass of your bottle. Remove all air bubbles and then pack it down tight again. You may need to readjust the liquid. Then you're going to wipe the rim. Since this is a vegetable, it's not meat, you can use water and a cloth. Just make sure to wipe your rim well. Add your warm cap. And then you put your ring on fingertip tight. And then you transfer this over to your canner. That's warming up on the stove behind me. So I ended up with 4 jars, like I said, a small batch. Now carrots are a low acid food, so you have to remember the only way to safely preserve them is by pressure canning. I've had some people tell me, oh, I've been doing this for years. I've been just boiling them on top of my stovetop. We've never gotten sick. And I always kind of smile and say, well, you know, I'm glad to hear nobody's ever gotten sick. But the only way to really make sure that you're doing this safely is by pressure canning. You can boil carrots or anything on your stovetop for hours and hours. The length of time is not what's going to make your product safe. What makes your product safe is to get it to at least 241 degrees, and you'll never achieve that temperature by boiling on your stovetop. So pressure canning is the only way to achieve that temperature, and that temperature kills any kind of bacteria that you would potentially have in your food. So please do it safe, do it right. When you know better, you do better. So pressure can your low acid foods, your vegetables. So now we're gonna pop the cover on this and we're going to bring it to a boil. Once we get a steady stream coming out of the top of the pot, lots of steam, then we vent it for 10 minutes. We time it for 10 minutes. Put the pressure gauge on top and bring it to pressure. So here where I live at my altitude, I need to get it to 11 pounds of pressure. Make sure to check out the altitude where you live in. And once it's at 11 pounds of pressure, that's when we start timing. Carrots need to process for 25 minutes in your pressure canner and then you're done. So let's get going. We're gonna put the cover on. Increase the heat and wait till this comes to a boil. The pressure is really building up inside the pot. You can really feel the steam coming out of the pot. And this button has come up. As you can see, this button here. So that means that the pressure inside the pot is really building. So now we vent this for 10 minutes. So our pot has vented for 10 minutes. So now we're going to put on the weighted gauge and start building the pressure. So now that it's at 11 pounds of pressure, we time this for 25 minutes. So now that the time is up, we turn off the heat and we're going to move it over to the other side of the stove. If your pot is too heavy, don't worry about it. Just leave it where it is. You don't want to drag it across your stovetop and ruin the top of your stove, especially if it's a glass top. So just leave it where it is. Just one thing that I wanted to add is while you're processing, while your canner is boiling, you don't want to leave it unattended. You don't want to go off and go outside and go in the garden or no matter what. Even if you have a 75-minute processing time, you really want to keep an eye, making sure that you're staying within pressure, that the pressure is not going up too high or going down too low. So always keep a close watch on your pressure canner. So now what has to happen, we need to let the pot depressurize on its own. So what's going to happen is that the dial is going to slowly go down to 0. Once the button drops, then you remove your weighted gauge, time 10 minutes, and then you can take your cover off. Don't go too fast. You don't want to try to take the cover off. You don't want to make this process go any faster because it's all about the safety of your product and the safety of yourself as well. So just let it happen naturally. I hope you've enjoyed this video on how to have your own pressure can carrots stored throughout the winter. Remember, once you get them out of your pot, you need to let them set for about 24 hours. Don't touch them, leave them untouched on your countertop for 24 hours. Once that time is up, you're going to want to remove these rings from the top of your jars, maybe give your bottles a little wipe down. Write the year that you made your carrots so you don't forget. Sometimes we don't eat things as fast as we think we will, so make sure to write the year down. You can store your carrots in a cool, dry, dark environment and they will easily keep for up to a year. You'll be able to enjoy them throughout the winter, guaranteed, unless you eat them all at once. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy the content. If you do, give it a big thumbs up and be sure to check back again soon.